Let's talk about the use tax and explain what that's all about and how you're going to enforce it.
At the council meeting this Tuesday night, Carefree had the first reading of an ordinance to implement a use tax in the town of Carefree. The use tax is basically directed at property that is brought into Arizona. There's no sales tax paid at the source, and it imposes a sales tax in effect on property that's brought into Arizona. This was initiated years ago when people were going to California, buying automobiles, bringing them into Arizona. They didn't pay sales tax in California because we said we're exporting that car. They got them here, and they never paid a tax on it. So the use tax was implemented. Basically says if you're going to bring property into the state, not pay sales tax on it, you will have to pay a use tax on it. There's a $1,000 exemption for individuals. Many of you probably buy stuff over the internet. Many of those retailers, including Amazon, now are charging sales tax on what they're shipping into Arizona. You have a $1,000 exemption. It's not aimed at individual people. What it's aimed at are corporations like a resort, Lowe's, and CVS that may have a national buying organization, buys new bedding for the resort, ships it to Arizona, doesn't pay sales tax on it. When they bring it in here, they would pay sales tax on it. Lowe's, for example, may get new shelving from a national organization. Don't pay sales tax because they're shipping it somewhere else. When they bring it in, they'd have to pay sales tax on it. Good reason for having a use tax is it protects local vendors. The remote vendor has an advantage over a local vendor because the local vendor has to charge a sales tax when they sell stuff to their neighbor. This would bring it in. So it's basically looking at large corporations that bring stuff into Arizona, Carefree. The other thing we think is happening is that many of these large organizations are paying this use tax, and because we don't have it on our books, we're not getting our share of what we should be getting. We can't prove that, but that's what we think is happening. How much is this worth to the town? Our town auditor also audits Cave Creek. He says it's unclear how much they're getting, but their budget says that they'll get about $100,000 a year of use tax for people who are bringing stuff into Arizona without paying sales tax at the origin. This use tax charges sales tax.
What's the, go ahead.
Is this in conjunction with the county? Because the county already has a use tax. So you're just getting up to speed in terms of modifying with the county so the county can enforce it?
All the jurisdictions around us, Fountain Hills, Phoenix, Scottsdale, and Cave Creek, all of them have a use tax. We do not. So we're basically getting up to speed with everybody else and trying to get our fair share of the action.
The county enforces it.
Well, it's actually
The county
state.
enforces it, don't they?
It's state. Yeah. All sales tax right now just flows through the state. Yes, sir.
Does it also count for stuff that goes out of state?
No,
No.
So how do you control that?
we don't. There's no tax on
There's
that.
no tax on stuff.
It's the receiving state that has the opportunity to do something about it.
The merchants in Carefree, for the most part, will receive no direct benefit from the use tax. Is that a correct statement?
No.
No.
They get to compete on an equal opportunity with merchants outside of Arizona who would sell the product without charging tax.
How does the individual business, example, you can't buy electronics for the most part in Carefree. So the money that's paid when a TV is shipped in from Texas, there's no one here that benefits directly, other than the town.
I think you have to look at it both short-term and long-term. Obviously, in the future, things change. Perhaps we get an electronic store in the future. That's use tax would level the playing field and make it more competitive.
That's the attempt right now, is to try and level the playing field for existing businesses. That's the real benefit.
Yes, that's the short-term, and long-term is thinking long-range about this thing too.
The other thing I'd mention is, again, most of the large internet realtors have started collecting sales tax for stuff they ship in from Texas. We're going to get that money from Amazon. I believe our friends, I hate to mention this word, Walmart has also implemented that corporate policy. And if Congress ever passes the legislation that's consistent with sales tax simplification in Arizona, everybody will have to discharge sales tax when they ship into this state through the internet. But the big guys are already doing it. And there's also the $1,000 exemption for people like you. So if you buy a TV set and you have over $1,000 in taxes, that's one heck of a TV set.
If I were to buy 3 parts for my TV that I have, each of which is $30, it doesn't amount to $1,000, I would pay no tax on those individual pieces?
Correct.
Because the exemption is $1,000, whether it's 1 piece or 20 pieces.
So there, but the exemption is on the tax, not on the value of whatever you bought. Okay.
This is not something, if you look real close at your Arizona state tax return last year for 2012, it had a line where it asked you to tell them how much of the sales tax, how much use tax you owed. How many people filled in that I owe the state use tax for stuff that I bought out of state? People just don't do it. Don't worry about it. It isn't aimed at individuals. It's aimed at the big corporations who are bringing this stuff.